It's pretty rare that the parenting adventure is told by the dad. The expression on Jared Erhardt's memoir is explained in the title of his book, Surviving Quintuplets. Now, Jennifer gave birth to what the Bible calls a quiver, 5 babies. Welcome, folks, from Toronto. What a story. You were expecting 4 babies.
We were, yeah. Originally, well, actually, at the first ultrasound, we discovered that Jennifer was pregnant with 5. And that was, of course, an incredible shock, needless to say. I'm glad I had a chair for that news. But then partway through the pregnancy, they were only able to count 4 heartbeats. So all the way through, right up until delivery and ultrasounds and everything, the number was 4 that we were expecting. But on delivery, there was a 5th little baby that was born.
One was hiding. And we're going to come to that moment because there's too much story before this earthquake in your lives. Infertility was the first earthquake in your marriage.
Yeah, it was tricky. You know, we were a very typical young couple. We'd been settling into the routine of our lives and decided it was time to have a family. And it took longer than it should have as young, healthy people. So we thought, at least anyhow. So we connected with some doctors that began to help us and discovered, yeah, there was a barrier. So we started to take that on, and working through the ups and downs of infertility was really emotional and challenging on so many different levels. So yeah, that was one of our first big tests, for sure.
Now, Jen, I think, can you even put words to the news that multiple births was going to be your story?
It's hard to put into words, really, but I remember the day we found out. We were happy, but not happy, if that makes sense to you. I mean, we sort of looked at our life like, this is going to be crazy, but somehow you adjust, and we tried to be excited about it, and obviously we prayed about it, and it was going to be our life. We had to adjust, right? So
we were praying for a family, and of course we're pursuing that, but it somehow seemed like the most bizarre answer to prayer. And from that first ultrasound, we drove home in silence, and this was not the answer that we were expecting, and we knew that life was radically different for us from that moment on. So there were more questions than there were answers.
Well, here's the next bump in the road. Excuse the analogy, but before any bumps, selective reduction.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
It was actually that first ultrasound that we were met with what was called selective reduction. I'd never heard of it before that moment. And at that first ultrasound, determined that there were 5 babies. And we sat across from our physician that suggested that, of course, this wasn't healthy for Jennifer, that the prognosis was extremely slim, that we would deliver healthy babies. And so for her safety and in order to actually have a family, they were recommending that we selectively reduce the number of babies. So it was, you know, right on after praying for a family and finding out that we were pregnant, we were immediately met with the roadblock of abortion. And it just was surreal, and we didn't really know how to react, especially since we had medical advice pointing us that direction.
Well, Jen, you're a nurse, so this wasn't a new term for you, I'm sure.
You know, it sort of was, because my field is very different from that area of medicine, but we did a lot of research. I phoned a million people. I actually ended up phoning down to the States and speaking to an American physician who ended up being a Christian. And all the Toronto advice I got from all the physicians I spoke to was definitely reduction's the way to go. But I happened to I don't even know how I got her number, but I phoned her, and it felt like it was God talking to me, but she basically said to me, you can do this. I have tons of women who go through this and are fine. And as soon as I heard it from her, I sort of had a sense of peace about it, and that helped us make our decision for sure.
Your father, he weighed in with wise words that I think I want to tuck this away for any crisis, any decision, because I just think it's really helpful. He said, make the decision you can live with your whole lives, and then never look back. And thankfully, the Lord weighed in as
Yeah,
well
He did.
with precious words that really, I think, become the frame for this whole story. You'll find the scripture in Mark and in Luke. It comes from Jesus' words to the father. Jairus' daughter had died, actually.
Right.
And what did Jesus say to this bereft father?
Yeah, Jairus had asked Jesus to come and heal his daughter, and partway along the road, Jesus had been delayed, and a servant of Jairus comes back to Jesus and said, well, don't bother now, because your daughter has died. And Jesus says to Jairus, don't be afraid, just believe. And we were reading that passage one morning when we were having our devotions together, and the words came to us almost audibly. It was in bold, in print, and it impacted us both incredibly profoundly, and we really had a sense that this was a direct promise from the Lord that He was giving to us. Don't be afraid, just believe. I've got this, I am at work in this. And
but it would be tested. Jen, you went into hospital.
It was tested,
early.
but you know, we knew from that moment on, and we didn't look back, as my dad's advice was, and we just, you know,
Carried
whatever
on
happened, happened, and we
all
knew
the
that we had made the right decision for us at that point. So.
Now, if any Downton Abbey fans are watching, Sybil died from preeclampsia.
Yeah.
That was a concern. When you went into the hospital,
For sure.
it would turn out to be just over 3 weeks before you went into labor at 24 weeks, 26.
Yes, just I guess 27 weeks, 6 days sort of thing is
there
when
we
I
got it.
delivered. But
Good.
I remember the day. So yeah, we went for a routine hospital visit, and everything had been going along pretty well. And that morning they said, no, this is it. You're in hospital. You're on bed rest. And my blood pressure was through the roof and preeclamptic, obviously. So. And I managed to stay there in the hospital for about 3 weeks on bed rest till we delivered. But even that day, I remember when they admitted us, they said, okay, there's a 50% chance that if you deliver them, they won't survive at this point. So they remember they printed out the little arm bracelets for all the kids with their names on them and brought them up to us. So it was tough, for sure.
And it was
Stressful.
your birthday.
It was my birthday.
Your 30th
Yeah.
birthday. And you're going into labor, and now take us into the delivery.
Jared?
It was, yeah, it was surreal. I mean, Jennifer's water, they had, through an ultrasound earlier that day, Jennifer's water had broken, so they knew this was imminent. We had to deal with this quite quickly. So turns out, of course, these things happen for some reason in the middle of the night. I don't know why that is, but this was no different. So they are trying to pull together all the teams, and when you're expecting a large number, there's a respiratory technician, there's a neonatologist, there's a nurse for each of the babies. That's right. And then there's the team that's helping Jennifer in delivering. So it took a small army of people to be gathered together in the wee hours of the morning. And when that was done, I was left outside the room just to stew and wait while they were prepping Jennifer, and I was brought in, and things happened quite quickly from that moment on.
The average birth weight, the range weight, was from just under a pound to just
About
over
2.5 pounds, yeah.
2.5. Well, we should mention there was a surprise baby. Because everyone thought there were 4. That's all the heartbeats that were detected at this point. But Christian was the surprise, and also the weak one. He lived only 10 days.
He did, yeah. Although, you know, it was quite remarkable because from birth, he was the strongest, which is really, really amazing. We were expecting from the ultrasounds 3 girls and 1 boy. And on delivery, delivered first girl, delivered second girl, delivered a little boy that was extremely small, then another little boy. And we thought, oh, okay, the ultrasounds were wrong. Wow, what do you know? We're going to have 2 and 2. And just as the doctor was sort of finishing, his finger was grabbed by a little hand.
Isn't that
And out
amazing?
came another little girl, Madison. So right from birth, Christian was able to breathe on his own and required very little extra attention. So because they were only prepared for 4, there were only 4 teams available. So they were able to, you know, Christian gave them room to be able to meet the needs of the other 4, but he just succumbed to his prematurity, and his little lungs couldn't keep up. And he was under a pound when he was born.
Under a pound. Otherwise, there were no major developmental issues with the babies, other than being small. And
that's right.
Needing to stay, I guess they stay till they're 5 pounds. That's when they allow them
pretty
to
much,
go.
yeah, pretty much.
You were met with a media frenzy, which I'm sure was a challenge.
Yeah.
You don't get a story like this every day.
That's true.
People are going to have 101 questions, and you know, they're all answered in the book. Joel was the baby that got to go home. And let me just back up and say, Christian, his namesake was your father.
Yeah, we
Jared.
named him Christian Gerald after my dad, who had passed away just the year that we were married.
So it was sweet to think about him being welcomed not only by Jesus, but by his namesake in heaven.
It really was, and it still is, actually.
Yeah, very sweet. Joel was the first to go home. There was a car accident on the way. That's just some of the color.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Sorry. It's really neat to see that your career was as a pit musician, which doesn't sound very glamorous. You're a violinist. You were playing Miss Saigon at the time. Was that Princess of Wales Theatre?
It was, yeah.
And so Dad could be home through the day for
this
adventure.
It was really ideal, yeah. Be home for most of the days except for matinee days, and be able to put the kids to bed, more or less, and then head off to work and back around 11:30 or 12 and be available. It was really ideal.
People didn't think you would survive this, and everybody has questions. I mean, my first thought was, well, if one cries in the night, do they all wake up? I mean, how do you try to control the potential frenzy? There's only, well, both mothers helped, right?
They did.
Moms were on the
Jared and I
job.
sort of did night shift, and then my mom and Jared's mom took over for 4 hours in the morning when we slept.
Did you try to breastfeed?
No, they were premature and sick, so yeah.
The feeding time. I've seen the picture of the bottles of formula. Just keeping that at the ready must have been full-time job.
You eventually develop your systems, right? Life becomes all about systems, and you have a clock set up for every little aspect. And we had our time where we made our formula at night and prepared for the next day. And you know, Jennifer's a very systematic person, so that she kept it driving, which was really great.
And really hands-on dad here in what you called baby central. You couldn't stay in that home ultimately when they were toddlers. You had to have some more space. Flew for 5.
Oh boy.
Flew for 5 was one of your first adventures.
Yeah, that was awful.
I mean,
to this day, when anybody gets a stomachache, the blood drains from Jennifer's face.
Yes.
Because, I think the scars
that was
are
horrible.
deep there.
Oh my. And later homework for 5. I loved that you said you waited till all 4 were ready to learn to ride a bike.
Well, that was kind of self-defense, really, for us, because we had no choice. You know, it just wasn't possible for us to sort of force some of those things along the road. We had to wait till they were ready, because that took less time and made it more manageable for us. So we sort of just stumbled into that as we went.
So many more questions. As parents, resist comparing. Think about it. I mean, think about the birthdays. Your birthday, they were born, what, 1 hour after your birthday?
Correct, yes.
So you get your own birthday mom, and
sort of.
kind of, because it morphs right into
it's
birthday
a one big party, yeah.
And those
it's more fun.
kids are now, well, they're 20 in October.
20.
November.
November.
Yep. Yeah.
20 in November. And they all celebrate together. Now, I've got the picture right. You each one, when they were little, got their own little corner of the cake for candles.
Yeah, we figured that out eventually, too.
Yeah.
That seemed to work fairly well. So they all had their moment, but...
Just too fun. And they all have their own bent in terms of career interests and so on. And
Very much.
Each one unique.
They're very individual. Yeah. And, you know, there's obviously a strong tie. I think, you know, any siblings probably grow up as allies and adversaries at the same time, and I'm sure there's a little bit of that, but it is a very, very strong tie that they have, and it's an interesting phase for them as they now start to walk off in their own directions, and it'll be fun just to see how that develops and grows for them.
I think it's so sweet that it involves everybody here, but Dad has actually written the journey, and you say quite honestly, you say, you've never been less equipped for anything than you felt you were for this, but that the kids
So true.
have done more for you than you did for them.
Yeah.
Great adventure.
Very much.
It's a great story, and wherever you're at, this could be a birthday gift, Father's Day. Going to encourage parents everywhere, those considering parenthood. Can't imagine a bigger challenge, but hey, look at them today. Thank you, folks, for coming.
Thank you.
And sharing just a taste of this amazing story. Love to the kids.
Thank you.
Going to be interesting to see where we had a lot of the weddings. Oh boy,
no.
you got, yeah. Okay, this is at our e-store, Surviving Quintuplets, a Father's Memoir by Jared Erhardt. But everybody's made a contribution just by being part of the
Absolutely.
adventure.